The oracle.
Yes.
The ultimate voice of authority in their society.
Right.
Decrees that Akimafuna must be killed.
This is a pivotal moment. This decree, it's divine law.
Yes.
Unquestionable.
Yes.
And Okonkwo, driven by that fear of appearing weak,
Right.
participates in Okimefuna's death.
It's heartbreaking, especially for a North.
Welcome to Witter. Who Has Time to Read? The podcast that brings deep dives for busy minds. Listen to AI hosts Jane and Dane and get ready to unpack the world's most captivating books in just a fraction of the time. Whether commuting, working out, or just squeezing in a quick break, we deliver key insights, thought-provoking themes, and takeaways you can carry into your day. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and leave a comment. Plus, use our links in the description to purchase this book. Your support helps us bring more engaging book discussions to you. Listen and follow us wherever you get your podcasts. Who has time to read? You do, with Witter.
Welcome back to Witter, your go-to for those deep dives.
Yeah.
For those books you wish you had time to read.
That's right.
And this month, in honor of Black History Month, we are diving into a true landmark.
Mm-hmm.
Things Fall Apart by Chinua Achebe.
Yeah, a classic.
I mean, this book has sold over 20 million copies.
Wow.
And has been translated into, I think, 57 languages.
It's incredible.
It's really a testament to the power and impact of Black voices in literature.
Absolutely.
So today we're going to kind of explore the world that Achebe created.
Okay.
Pre-colonial Nigeria. Vibrant,
Yes.
complex, but also kind of a world on the brink of change.
Right?
A change that will lead to its tragic unraveling.
Yeah, and you know what really strikes me about this book is how Achebe just immerses us in the Igbo culture.
Yes.
He doesn't just tell a story, he invites us to really understand the values,
Yes.
the beliefs, the societal structures of the Igbo people.
And he does it through the characters so well.
He does.
And I think one character that stands out is Okonkwo, our protagonist. He's ambitious, strong, and driven by a fear of weakness. And you learn very quickly this fear stems from his father, Unoka,
Yes.
who was considered an Agbala,
Right?
a term for men without titles, signifying a lack of achievement in their society.
And that's key. In Igbo culture, titles aren't just like accolades or something.
Yeah.
They represent a man's standing in the community.
Right.
So Unoko, with his idleness, his debt,
Right.
he embodied everything Okonkwo feared.
Yes.
It's this fear that fuels Okonkwo's every action and shapes his destiny.
He's constantly trying to overcompensate for his father's failures.
Exactly. He wants to be respected, powerful,
Right.
and anything but weak
Yeah.
in the eyes of his people.
And the story opens with such a dramatic event
Yes, it does.
that highlights Umofia's power and influence. A woman from their clan is murdered by someone from Mbino.
Right.
And Umofia, known for its strength and reputation for magic, demands retribution.
Of course.
Like, they're not messing around. They deliver this ultimatum to Mbino. A young man and a virgin must be handed over to prevent war.
Right. It's fascinating, isn't it? This system of conflict resolution has maintained peace for generations.
And they even have that war medicine, Agarinwe,
Oh, yes.
the old woman, believed to be as old as the clan itself.
Wow.
People believed its active ingredient was an old woman with one leg hopping around the shrine.
It's such a striking image.
Yeah.
And it speaks to the power of belief and the mystique surrounding Umofia.
Right.
It foreshadows how this carefully balanced world is going to be disrupted
Yes.
by outside forces later in the book.
Mbino, clearly terrified, complies with the ultimatum.
Of course.
And a young man, Ikemefuna, is brought to Umofia and ends up living with Okonkwo's family for 3 years.
3 years.
This is where the story gets really interesting. Ikemefuna becomes like a son to Okonkwo, and especially close to his own son, Onwaye.
Yeah.
And Okonkwo really approves of Ikemefuna's influence on Onwaye.
That seems so.
He sees him as a model of masculinity, the warrior he wants his son to become.
But we see Nwoye kind of struggling with his own identity a little bit.
Yeah.
He's drawn to his mother's softer stories, gentler ways.
Yes.
A stark contrast to the masculine ideals his father embodies.
Right.
Ikemefuna's presence really highlights this conflict within Nwoye.
And then tragedy strikes. The oracle,
Yes.
the ultimate voice of authority in their society,
Right.
decrees that Ikemefuna must be killed.
This is a pivotal moment. This decree, it's divine law.
Yes.
Unquestionable.
Yes.
And Okonkwo, driven by that fear of appearing weak,
Right.
participates in Okimefuna's death.
It's heartbreaking, especially for Onoye.
Of course.
He witnesses the execution of this young man who had become like a brother to
and
him.
it leaves a mark on him. It makes him confront the brutality of these traditions.
Yes.
His father so fiercely upholds.
And for Okonkwo, this act of violence driven by his fear has devastating consequences that will continue to unfold as the story progresses.
Yeah, it's like he sets off this tragic chain of events
Right.
from this point on.
Now, the arrival of the missionaries marks another turning point in the story.
Okay.
They come bearing a new faith and a new way of life
Right.
that directly challenges the traditional order of Umofia.
And how do they react to that?
Initially, the missionaries are met with amusement, kind of dismissal
Oh,
by some. But figures like Kilelo,
right.
the priestess, they sense the danger.
They do.
This clash between the Igbo belief system and Christianity is central to the rest of the book.
It really is.
The missionaries condemn the Igbo gods as false, and they begin to sow seeds of discord
Yes.
within the clan. Their arrival is like a cultural earthquake
Yeah.
that will shake the very foundations of Umufia.
Wow.
And for Okonkwo, this clash becomes personal when his son, Onwoye, converts to Christianity.
This is where we see Okonkwo's world really start to fall apart.
Yeah.
He's devastated by Nemoye's conversion, completely rejects him, fearing that his lineage will abandon their ancestors.
It's such a painful rejection, and it speaks to the loss and betrayal that Okonkwo feels.
It's like watching his worst nightmare come true.
Yes.
His son, his legacy, is embracing this faith that undermines everything he holds dear.
But it's a microcosm of what's happening under colonialism.
Exactly. You see the loss of identity, this
Right.
widening generational gap,
Yes.
and this feeling of things falling apart.
It's like watching the slow unraveling of a way of life.
It is a culture under threat.
Yes.
And this sets the stage for the final act,
Yes.
where the tension between Umofia and the colonial administration reaches a boiling point.
The district commissioner's heavy-handed approach leads to the humiliation of Umofia's leaders.
Oh,
And in a moment of defiance, Okonkwo takes a drastic action.
really?
It's an act of resistance, fueled by his pride, his anger, but also an act of desperation.
What does he do?
He kills a messenger,
A messenger.
a representative of the colonial government.
Oh,
And this action, however understandable,
right.
will seal his fate
Oh, no.
and have far-reaching consequences for his clan.
It's a turning point. It highlights the impossible choices people faced,
Right.
caught between tradition and this overwhelming force of colonialism.
And this is where we'll pick up next time. We'll explore the tragic consequences of Okonkwo's actions,
Okay.
the devastating impact of colonialism, and the profound ending of things fall apart.
Sounds good. So Okonkwo's act of defiance, killing that messenger,
Right.
it really sets off this chain of events that leads to his ultimate downfall.
Yes.
And remember, suicide, it's considered an abomination
Right.
in Igbo culture.
Yes.
He can't even be buried properly by his own people.
Right.
It's a final blow, underlines the tragedy.
It's a heartbreaking end for this character who tried so hard to be strong, uphold tradition, escape his father's shadow.
Absolutely.
And that final image of Okonkwo's body
Yeah.
hanging from the tree.
It's so powerful.
Such a stark symbol of the destruction of colonialism.
Not just Okonkwo's tragedy, it's the collapse of an entire way of life.
And then the book ends from the perspective of the district commissioner.
Yeah.
And it's chilling how detached he is
Right.
from the tragedy.
Yeah.
He's already thinking about the book he's going to write about it.
It's like he's completely missing
I know.
the point.
A book that will probably frame the events through a colonial lens.
That's the key here. The district commissioner's perspective, it shows the power imbalance.
Yes.
He's writing the history, controlling the narrative,
Right.
and Okonkwo's story, Mufia's story, is silenced.
It's like he doesn't even see the complexity of the culture he's helping dismantle.
Exactly. Achebe uses this contrast to expose the arrogance of colonialism.
Yes.
He's giving voice to the silenced narratives,
Right.
challenging those dominant perspectives that have shaped how we see history.
And that's why Things Fall Apart is so important.
Absolutely.
It's not just a story.
Yes.
In the face of adversity,
Yeah.
it makes us confront colonialism and its impact.
It reminds us that there's never just one side to history.
Right.
Multiple perspectives, multiple stories that need to be heard.
I love how Achebe brings together these historical forces with personal stories.
Yes.
We see the impact of colonialism, not just as a society,
Right.
but on Okonkwo and Woye, all the characters.
And that's what makes it relatable,
Yeah.
even today.
Yes.
We might not experience colonialism directly, but we can relate to the cultural clash, the loss of identity, the struggle against oppression.
Yes.
Those are universal.
And it makes you wonder, what if Okonkwo had chosen a different path? If he hadn't been driven by fear, could he have adapted?
That's a great question. Maybe, but I think Achebe's showing us that colonialism often didn't give many choices.
Right.
It's not about blaming Okonkwo, it's about understanding his situation.
And this brings us to a broader question.
Yeah.
Especially now during Black History Month. How do we make sure those diverse voices are heard?
That's so important. One way is to seek out and support Black authors, Black artists.
Absolutely.
There's so much talent to be discovered.
Reading Things Fall Apart is a great start, but it shouldn't end there.
Right.
There's a whole world of Black literature out there. So many different experiences.
It's about expanding what we read, challenging our assumptions.
So, to our listeners,
Yes.
what are some other Black voices we should listen to? What authors do you recommend?
And how can we, as readers, as people, support them? Not just now, but all the time.
Yeah, those are really important questions, especially as we try to, create a more inclusive, equitable world.
It is, understanding these different perspectives, especially those that have been historically marginalized, makes us all richer.
Right.
It helps us understand, each other better and helps build a more just and compassionate society.
That's beautifully said. So to our listeners out there, if you only have time for one book this month, make it Things Fall Apart. Yeah. It's a journey you won't forget, a story that will stick with you.
Absolutely. This is just the beginning. There's a whole world of Black literature out there waiting to be discovered.
So keep diving deep, keep asking questions, and keep the conversation going.
Absolutely.
Thanks for joining us on this deep dive into Things Fall Apart. We hope it sparked your curiosity.
Yes.
And inspired you to seek out more Black voices and stories.
And happy Black History Month, everyone.
Yes.